Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin held bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, which is being hosted in Russia's southwestern city of Kazan. Ahead of the bilateral talks, the two leaders greeted and hugged each other. Referring to the Russia-Ukraine war, the Prime Minister reiterated his message on ceasefire. He said that India believes in peaceful resolutions and solutions to conflicts. This is Prime Minister Modi's second visit to Russia in the last 3 months.
Уважаемый господин премьер-министр, переговоры с вами. Мы регулярно обмениваемся информацией по телефону.
एक्सेलेंसी, रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय पर हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। शांति और स्थिरता की जल्द से जल्द बहाली का हम पूरी तरह समर्थन करते हैं। हमारे सभी प्रयास मानवता को प्रमुखता देते हैं। आने वाले समय में भी भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है। एक्सेलेंसी, आज इन सभी विषयों पर विचार साझा करने का एक और महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है। एक बार फिर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
The bonhomie between India and Russia was on full display during the crucial meeting. The duo shared a light moment when President Putin joked that he and Prime Minister Modi can understand each other without any translation.
У нас такие отношения, что я считал, что вы и так все понимаете.
हमारे इतने रिश्ते हैं कि मुझे ऐसा लगा कि आपको कोई अनुवाद नहीं चाहिए।
Chinese President Xi Jinping, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, among other global leaders, have arrived in Kazan to participate in the organization's summit. As many as 22 heads of state and 6 heads of international organizations are expected to attend the event. As a special honor, Russian fighter jets escorted the incoming planes of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping before they landed in Kazan for the summit. Prime Minister Modi's 2-day visit to Kazan is being watched closely. It comes a day after India announced that it has reached an agreement with China on non-hostile patrolling along the line of actual control. The developments have raised the possibility of a bilateral meeting with President Xi Jinping as Russia hosts the 16th edition of the BRICS summit. It wants to showcase the rising clout of the non-Western world. For President Putin, the 3-day meeting also offers a powerful way to demonstrate the failure of US-led efforts to isolate Russia of its action in Ukraine. The Kremlin has started the summit as the largest foreign policy event ever held by Russia, with 36 countries attending and more than 20 of them represented by heads of state.
Определять какие-то сроки – это такая очень сложная вещь.
Let's now talk more about this summit. WION's assistant editor for foreign affairs, Sidhan Sibol, is now joining us live on this broadcast. Sidhan Sibol, good to see you. I understand you are in Kazan, and the Indian Prime Minister did start this event with a message of peace. We are also looking at a possibility of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Do you have any word on that?
Well, talking about the buzz about the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President meeting, right now, of course, there is no confirmation if there will be a bilateral. But, of course, ahead of the Indian Prime Minister's visit, we know the Indian Foreign Secretary saying that there is an agreement on patrolling. The confirmation also coming by the Chinese Foreign Ministry earlier today. So, any formal bilateral meeting between the two sides will be seen as a big breakthrough. Now, essentially, previously, BRICS summit has provided that opportunity for some kind of conversation. We saw last year at the South Africa BRICS summit, both the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President holding a brief conversation earlier in 2017. The Xiamen BRICS summit was something that came in the backdrop of the breakthrough on the Doklam crisis between India and China. So we will be waiting if there any conversation on bilateral meeting. We know that it's a packed agenda. The day, of course, essentially has just started here. The BRICS summit formally begins with an informal dinner of the leaders later today here in Kazan. It's just 3:30 p.m. local time here in Kazan. Tomorrow, of course, will be the big day when the summit takes place, and ahead of that or during that summit, we could see a possibility of any conversation between the two sides, which will be a positive development given the size of the two countries geographically, in terms of population-wise, in terms of economy. These are two large countries, and whatever happens between the two large countries impacts the global humanity as well.
Siddhant, before I let you go, we saw that bonhomie between India and Russia in full display when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also the Russian President Vladimir Putin did hug. And we do also understand that the Prime Minister of India had a message of peace. What was the response from the Russian President?
Well, when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised the Ukraine conflict war issue, he emphasized on peaceful dialogue for resolution of this conflict. That has been the message from New Delhi since the war started in 2022. In fact, these the last few months have been significant in terms of India's role in this war. The Indian Prime Minister was earlier in Moscow for a bilateral visit. Then he traveled to Kyiv, and again he is right now here in Russia. And of course, India is seen as a neutral player that can send message from the two capitals to the other side. So essentially India's role is seen welcoming, but it is up to the two countries, Russia and Ukraine, to sit down, to have conversation. Though public comments by the Russian president as such, but Russia has been welcoming India as a country that is seen positive in terms of its role, rather than the West, which Russia sees as someone who is trying to spoil the situation.
All right, that is WION's Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibol, live in Kazan. Siddhant Sibol, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.